Welcome back, everyone, to this last session of Dialogues of Knowledge. This is a very nice time to discuss our last question, right? My name is Elynn Vazquez, and I'm here um, from Colegio Internacional Terranova. I'm the academic director, and it's a pleasure for me to join you here today. Let me just see all my participants. Hello, welcome.
Hi.
Good. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Let's just the other ones let a little bit for them to join. Um, Let me refresh the question that we're going to be discussing. It's science is organized knowledge, wisdom is organized life. This is a quote from Immanuel Kant, right? I just see two participants. I think there are a little bit more. Let's wait 2 more minutes. Thank you. How are you, Jacob?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Let me just turn a little bit my volume, or maybe you can turn a little bit your volume because I hear you very far. Thank you. We're gonna wait just one little minute so everyone can join. Um, okay, so I have Jacob and Opal. Is that your name, Opal? Yes. Um, Let me just see why there it's taking a little bit longer. ¿Qué tal? Should I begin? We're still waiting, right, for more participants. Okay. So, have you watched any other sessions?
I haven't, no.
No? Oh, Jacob?
I have reviewed a few of the sessions some of my classmates were in.
Uh-huh. Did you like them?
Yes.
Did you enjoy them? What do you think?
It was interesting, yes.
You're visiting from Navajo. That's very nice. Welcome. Opal, where are you from? What school?
Navajo Prep
Navajo
as
too?
well. Yeah.
Okay, so you're very on time. Just let me wait a little bit to see if somebody else joins. I went to Navajo Prep last, I don't know, it was September, I think, to bring our exchange students.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Yeah. So maybe we crossed paths and we didn't notice. Amir, how are you?
Hi, sorry. Hi, Opal.
Hi, Amir.
No.
How are you?
I'm cool. How are you?
Good.
Welcome, Amir.
Thank you.
So I think we're waiting for a little bit more participants. Just how have you seen the sessions, Amir? Have you enjoyed the sessions so far?
Yeah, I've enjoyed them like a lot. I really like this discussion about um like knowledge and yeah, all this stuff. I like it. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Have you felt that you have been learning a lot, Amir?
Yeah, sorry. I have learned a lot. Yeah, like knowing this different perspectives and like yeah, discussing about it. It's interesting.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for joining us. So, why don't we start giving a run of your name and maybe why do you think this quote is important to be discussed? Yes. So, can we start, Amir?
Yeah, for me, it's important and interesting because we're discussing two different topics that maybe people or maybe society consider something like different or apart, and I think that discussing like the relation between them, it's I don't know, it's cool. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Amir. We have maybe Opal.
I think it's important to discuss them because they both play a relationship with each other. They're both really important, but it's important that we understand how they can work together.
Okay, thank you, Opal. Jacob.
Yeah, similar with the others, I feel like this discussion is important because it kind of provides us with an understanding that the difference between having knowledge and using it wisely.
Thank you. That's very important to question, right? And Yaretsi, did I say your name correctly?
Yes,
Okay, go ahead, Yaretsi.
thank you. Well, I believe that mainly from this phrase, we can see two topics that relate to each other in so many ways of life, and it can really define what you want for yourself and how society can function.
How society? I didn't listen the last part.
Sorry, is my mic okay there?
No, it's okay. How
Oh,
society?
yeah, how society can function. Like,
Oh, can function. Okay.
yes.
Thank you very much. And we have Charan. Welcome, Charan.
Hi.
Okay, could you share with us, Charan, why did you choose this quote to discuss?
Yeah, I chose this code because all the other codes were I really not interesting to me. And this one was very interesting, and I want to know everyone's different opinions about it. So yeah,
Okay. So maybe, Charan, could you speak a little bit up so we can all hear
yeah,
you
okay.
correctly? Thank you. I think the this I'm using a different computer now, and it's a little bit soft the sound. So if you speak aloud, I can clearly hear you. Okay, thank you very much. So why don't we start with what's your understanding about science first, and then we start climbing to what is your understanding about wisdom, and as you posed already, are these two concepts related somehow, or should we consider them apart? Okay. So first, let's try a little bit share our understanding about science, and then about wisdom. So who would like to start?
So yeah, for me, I think science is information that will help us understand how the world works, and wisdom is trying to know how to apply those knowledge into a more appropriate way.
Mm-hmm. So it's appropriate application of knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So important words there. Um, who else would like to go? Opal? How about Opal?
I think knowledge is very follows strict methodologies, whereas wisdom is more shaped by personal experiences. And I think wisdom kind of asks more philosophical questions, while science asks more um, natural questions about the environment or things we can solve kind of with the formula, whereas wisdom, we kind of have to use our own experiences to solve them.
Okay. Okay. I will go back to that idea of a formula. That's very interesting. Um, so it seems that in the wisdom area, we don't have a formula to act, right? That it seems so. Okay. Um, anyone else? Amir, maybe?
So I think it's more or less the same as like my classmate said that the science is based on this observation and experimentation and this analysis, and it's like systematic and objective
Mm-hmm.
without any judgment. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Whereas wisdom would be the opposite.
I think wisdom is like the use of this knowledge with like a clear focus based on ethics. Yeah.
Okay. But would it be subjective? Because you said science was objective, right?
Yeah.
Would wisdom be subjective or not?
Yeah, I think that, as Apple said, it's subjective because it depends on the experience the person has had. And yeah, most of the times it's how you focus this knowledge. And is it for the benefit of yours? Is it for the benefit of your community or like something else?
Okay, so we have different approaches,
Yeah.
but that doesn't really mean that is objective. So let's go back to Kant, because Kant is the author of this quote, right? So Kant proposes the um, categorical imperative. Have you heard about it? Have you heard about this rule that Kant provides us with, so we can think how we should act or how we must act? Do you know that one? No? Maybe I can share a little bit about it. It is Kant proposes that before we act, we pose a question to ourselves, and we have to think, if that I want to do, I would like somebody else to do it, or everyone else to do it, like the universe to do it. So if I were to help someone, the question would be, should everyone help someone? If the answer to the question is yes, so that it's a positive behavior, so a positive act that we ought to do. But if the answer to the question is no, we have to pause and not do it. So if my question is, imagine that I'm in a line to buy tickets to your favorite concert, right? So I have a favorite concert I want to go to, and I have to do a line to buy the tickets, and I know that it's a long line and I might not get the tickets. So I decide that the best way to achieve my end is to go in front of the line without, you know, asking for permission, because it's not my turn. But before doing that, if I ask myself, should everyone skip the line and go in front? Would I like that? Of course not, because then there will be no line. I probably end again without my tickets, right? So it doesn't work like, if you wanted, you do it, but everyone has to, the rest of the people or the universe has to follow that rule. I have to follow the rule too. That's what Kant tells us, that we ought to think and to act like we want everyone to do it. So that's the categorical imperative, and it's also objective. It doesn't depend on my needs or my wants. It depends on our duty. What is that I am supposed to be doing? And if we follow that, we will be doing good, and we will be achieving wisdom. Okay? So now, going back to the idea that wisdom requires experience, that wisdom has no formula, would you say that it's easier to achieve science than to achieve wisdom? And why, of course? We have another participant. I cannot see your name, it's very small. So maybe Jacob, and then I'll go to the rest of you.
Following up on that question, I feel like science would be easier to like acquire because it has the process as where wisdom doesn't really,
Okay.
because science we obtain like through scientific theories, facts, and methods through like experimentation, as where wisdom comes from like experiences and we reflect and make our judgments. So in that way, it can't be, or wisdom can't really be like memorized and taught like a scientific formula, because wisdom takes time and it's shaped by personal choices and experiences.
Okay, but then I'm going to do a follow up there, Jacob. Then I'm achieving understanding of the world through science, right? But then that knowledge is something that I want to use in my in my daily life. And that's where wisdom will form, right? How do I connect that understanding of my knowledge to apply it to my life and become wisdom? Because wisdom is related also to a good life, right? Like not to harm others, to respect others' life. So how can I connect that knowledge of science to the wisdom that I'm acquiring through experience? Jacob, you want to follow up that on that one?
Well, with that question, connecting knowledge to life kind of
Mm-hmm.
like means like we're um, applying our morals that we gain from wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like
And yeah,
in
go
my
ahead.
own
Go ahead.
kind of like apply my own knowledge by making like informed choices, whether it's academics or personal growth.
Okay. So science will inform also my decision making process, right? Or is it the other way around?
I would say that science approaches life with like a more understanding, and wisdom allows us to make ethical decisions, like whether or not it's right to make it.
Okay, thank you very much. We have Eduardo. Welcome, Eduardo. Would you like to answer that question? How can we connect science and wisdom?
Thank you. I would say that connecting science and wisdom in a way, it's important because wisdom, in a way, it's the ethical values that rule the our society, and we have to use that ethics. We have to use the wisdom in order to use science in a good way, in a positive way.
Mm-hmm. Could you give us an example of where these two concepts meet?
Sure. For example, the atomic bombs of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 1945, where science developed nuclear fusion, which is a great energy source. However, it was used into a weapon, killing millions of lives in Japan. Um, there, it begs the question if where if really the decision of throwing the bomb of Nagasaki and Hiroshima was a really wise, saving more lives, killing with the consequence of killing more.
Very good question that you pose. That is an ethical question, right? So saving or ending war justifies killing uh, population also, right? In order to stop more killing, we have to kill somebody. Um, and that's really the idea of wisdom. How do we make ethical decisions around the use of science or knowledge that we have? Okay, can we move a little bit on the other part that is related about organization? What does it mean that wisdom is organized life? Why would wisdom be letting us have an organized life? Maybe yeah, Yaretsi?
Sure. Well, answering to the question, I believe that in both ways, science can function in a way of organizing in its own life, but it truly depends on the type of people. I think that's why the phrase is very specific, and it says that wisdom is an organized life, and I agree to that because wisdom provides us with the values and moral knowledge to say in what way we should live. Uh, it doesn't necessarily have to be a good way because good doesn't define everyone and bad isn't defined in every single way. But I think science is a big part of getting to that knowledge, to wisdom, if it's
Mhm. Okay, thank you. Anyone wants to follow up? Yeah, Charan, go ahead.
Yeah, I think while science can give us information about the world, wisdom can make give us like a detailed structure of how to apply that information you learn and how to use it correctly, what not to do, and what to do, and by doing that can give you an organized life.
Mm-hmm. Right. It gives you a parameter or maybe a framework on how to choose, and that gives us organization maybe on our decision making process, right? But somebody mentioned before that there are different approaches, right? There are different ethical approaches. What's the difference between the universal or deontological approach that Kant is proposing with these other approaches? For example, there is an approach where the consequences are the most important thing. It's not the duty we follow; it's the consequence that we want to achieve, what guides our decision making. So, would any kind of ethics work as wisdom, or is or do you think that Kant is referring to a different kind of ethics that will allow us to get wisdom? Anyone, just you can raise your hand. Yes, go ahead, Eduardo.
Thank you. Um, I think that we shouldn't limit our actions just because we're afraid of the consequence. That's where the categorical imperative of Kant gets into.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that we shouldn't limit an action because of the consequences.
Okay. There is the other way around. There is that our actions are guided by the consequences we want to have. Like the example I was telling you about, that I want to get my tickets, so I don't I don't mind the process to get my tickets. The consequence is going to be positive because I want my tickets, right? So maybe that's not the best choice or the best approach to really be wise or become wise, right? How about, do you think that the organization of scientific knowledge can somehow impact the organization in our daily lives? Yes, Yaritza.
Yeah,
Yaretsi.
yeah,
Yes, sorry.
it's no problem. Well, I think so. And from that, I would like to raise a question that I was kind of investigating for background. And it was, should wisdom guide scientific progress? And I think here is a very important factor into the phrase, which is if it should be knowledge that guides wisdom or wisdom that guides knowledge.
Very good question. So, and what
And,
do you think?
and from that, I believe that they're in a sense codependent because science cannot exist without this wisdom that people give it and its ethical resonance. Because, for example, as I think Eduardo mentioned, for example, the attack on Hiroshima, it did not imply thorough consequences. So it doesn't always go action and consequences. It can also go consequences and actions. But this varies a lot depending on the wisdom that goes through science.
Mhm.
It's difficult because science per se, you could say, has so much value, and it I believe that science could be defined as the way to answer questions. The investigations that are done or experiments are the way, but its main function is to answer a question. So
Mhm.
wisdom necessarily has to play a part in that, but wisdom cannot be made without knowledge, and knowledge can be taken from different participations, well, different activities. through sensory activities, from talks in different ways. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Yaretsi. Anyone wants to? Yes, go ahead.
I agree with you on what you said on how they're codependent because I believe just due to
Ah,
considering ethical values, and then
mhm.
also wisdom does need scientific knowledge in order to be progressed and built upon.
Okay. I want to retake that. Science is dangerous without wisdom. Could you elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah, I think having more wisdom about ethical morals or considering like environments, like going back to the atomic bomb reference, um, science without keeping, if they would have dropped the bomb without thinking of any consequences, it kind of just shows how dangerous it is when it impacts the world like that. And it's important to consider what's going to be affected with new technological advancements. For example, like AI, although it is working with wisdom and we're gaining new knowledge, it's also negatively impacting the environment.
Mhm. Good example. Thank you, Opal. So we have this development of science and technological advances that somehow require a connection to wisdom so they can really benefit our lives, right? So where would be that space where we reflect upon how to make this connection, because scientists are working right on their experiments or their discoveries or their inventions, and the people is just using those as soon as they come out. Where would be the space where we need that connection to be happening, science and wisdom? Who could promote that? Yes. Yeah, yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Well, I believe that there is a very thin line that connects both of these because it doesn't go directly to wisdom. Science provides us with knowledge, but knowledge cannot be created upon thoroughly getting to understand the concepts. For example, science can explain us why the earth isn't flat, but we could not achieve wisdom if we did not understand fully the theory and perhaps even empirical evidence. So it's upon different processes that people, and again, I think that's why I chose this question, well, the phrase, because it goes beyond one's understanding, because science, and it would be preferable that scientists understand this thin line between people, society, knowledge, and wisdom to generate, to say, a progress in different areas. But if it's not achievable and it's not, it reflects upon everyone. So, yeah.
Yareti, just following up, do you think that every scientist is really aware of this um, in categorical imperative that we were talking about uh, from the ethical Kantian point of view?
No. It might sound difficult to understand, but I think part of scientists, well, I'm not overgeneralizing, but some people and some scientists do not have the wisdom or conscience, social conscience mainly, that it impacts that the sorry, that the actions they have can impact in whatever area they do. But I think that is kind of necessary to see that even though it might seem bad, but the ignorance, the difficulties, the attacks, the aggressiveness into a certain limit is necessary to achieve progress, to understand, to get understanding on comprehension into the consequences. For example, and I realized this. Uh, well, it could be explained mainly by one uh, example,
Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah.
is you do not learn until you live it. For example, I will not stop playing with fire until I get burned. Even if
Okay.
I read that, oh, it will hurt and stuff, maybe that's not enough. And it's not until I get burned that I understand and fully comprehend it. So, yes.
So, going back to the example, and maybe somebody can help us clarify. Going back to the example of the atomic bombs, did we needed them to be tested so we could understand and continue progressing on the development of energy? Would that really should have happened so we could understand the dimension of this scientific innovation?
And that's, oh, sorry, could I answer it?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead. And
Yes.
maybe just the other ones can raise their hand so I can give them. Go ahead, Yaretsi, and then with to another person.
Yes, thank you. I believe that's why it's important to see the limit, but it's quite difficult to see it when scientific overcomes it or wisdom tries to overcome it. Or, well, not wisdom, but knowledge perhaps, because it should not get to the point that there are wars or that bombs are being placed, nuclear weapons, the insufficiency due to the to the intelligent artificial
How
intelligence.
much?
So there's the limit into how we can learn it and how it can affect us.
Okay, thank you. Who else wants to say Amir? Maybe.
I want
Uh,
to. Yeah,
Oh, Charan, go ahead, and then Amir.
yeah. The atomic bomb, I think, when it was invented, but when invented, we have to test it because if we don't test it, we don't know how much damage it will do or what type of damage can cause. When you only use the scientific part of it, we don't know what parts of the world will be affected or what parts of the human community will be affected without testing it. So if we test it, we would gain much more information about how the bomb works and how much damage it could deal to the world.
And we can reflect upon that action.
Yeah.
Maybe that was not really wise. That's what Eduardo posed. That maybe the use of that atomic bomb wasn't really wise, right, Eduardo? Okay. Amir, were you were next?
Yeah, so I think that even though sometimes we need a personal experience, sometimes like nowadays we know the consequences of these atomic bombs. So maybe for like this investigation and scientific progress, maybe we need to think that how many people are gonna will be benefit. Sorry.
So maybe the um okay, so we're talking about two perspectives here. So maybe one is scientific knowledge will progress if we test it, right? If we experiment it, so we can do more advance in the knowledge of the development of the knowledge in science in that area. But the question or the other perspective is to what extent is ethics required to join the scientific advancements, right? So maybe I can have a scientific advancement and it could be great. Like there are tons of movies that tell us, like, oh, this weapon can really do mass destructions, I don't know, in 10 seconds, right? So, but is that really ethical? It could be a really an advancement, but is that what really Kant wanted us to be wise as people? So sometimes we can see that science would seem more important than ethics, and sometimes that ethics it's more important to guide the scientific progress. Is that what we're discussing? Could it be? Yes, go ahead, Opal.
I kind of liked what you were saying earlier when you said there's kind of like a space between science and wisdom that hasn't really been figured out yet.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think, like, looking at climate change, for example, um, the space between science and wisdom, like globally, we cannot agree on a plan, kind of, which prohibits our, like, we understand climate change, we have the wisdom about it. However, I think um, political tensions and global communications are lacking. We have the scientific knowledge, but the space between them is not working together to formally introduce a solution. So I think finding that space is also very important.
That's great, Opal. Good, good. You retook my idea. That's very good. Like, who is responsible to fill in that space? Maybe, maybe us as students, maybe us as people that is using all the scientific advances should also think about what am I going to choose. Maybe as a consumer, as a person that buys something, right? I have to choose. Maybe when I was, I don't know, younger, um, there was the problem was the ozone layer, right? So we learned in school how to read the labels so we could buy products that were not damaging the ozone layer. So maybe now, sometimes I feel that the media or the politicians or other actors choose to favor more or to let us think that scientific advances are more important, and we set aside all the ethical approaches that will help us take good decisions, right? And maybe there is a need of retaking those ethical approaches so we can use and be wise in how to make good choices about scientific use of, I don't know, products or inventions. So that's very good about what would be another space. Like, I think a good space is here discussing, like in schools, discussing and learning. What would be another space where science and ethics could meet so they can work together in favor of better choices?
I think
Yeah.
communication is important. With my example for climate change, like a space that was created was the Paris Agreement, where
Mm-hmm,
they discussed how to tackle climate change.
mm-hmm,
However, it's it's been demonstrated that from some countries, there's kind of a lack of initiative and action.
mm-hmm,
So while spaces are being built, it's just the action, I think, that's mainly lacking.
mm-hmm. So maybe their ethical approach is different from from the one that Kant was proposing. Because if they were Kantians or they were following Kantian ideas, they will be choosing what we ought to do, right? Like our duty plays the focus point of our actions. The pillar of our actions would be duty. So our duty as countries is to commit to um, agree on actions against climate change, right? But if duty is not the pillar, if duty is not the compass of their politics, and they have other compass, such as the consequences, then we cannot agree on being wise, right? So maybe that's what we have to explore. What's the ethics that is really guiding your actions so you can really become wise and you can really make good decisions about um, any action that you want to take? Because I think that's the gray area where there are different ethical approaches, and not all of them lead us, or yeah, leads us to be wise or to have wisdom or to develop wisdom. The ethical approach that Kant was proposing is his own, is the duty approach, the ontological approach. So in a way, he's criticizing other ethics, other ethical approaches. And science is not, or scientists are not always about aware of the ethics that could lead us to a wise life. How could we help or support scientists to really become aware of being also wise while they are doing their experiments, their inventions, while they are working? How can we help those scientists to really know or to really have this ethical approach in their minds while they are working? Yes, Charan?
Yeah, I think I want to say no. I think it is not very probable to convince science to the ethical base, because in science you should not consider ethics. Like, for example, when the COVID-19 came out, we, scientists should invent like vaccines. They have to test those vaccines in animals. They have to test those vaccines in humans so it can work. If you consider ethical ways, then in that case the vaccine would never be invented and the virus could be like worldwide pandemic would happen and everyone would be dead if ethics were considered in those situations.
Good example, Charan. So we have ethical dilemmas, right? Where we can sometimes have to choose between the life of many, sacrificing maybe the life of some. And that's what happened in the atomic bomb, right? So, so daily, life to life, we have different situations where there is difficult. It is very difficult to have an ethical choice. How can we? How can we support that? How can we develop wisdom in our daily life if we have these ethical choices or these ethical dilemmas? For example, Janet is posing a question that is can artificial intelligence become wise? What do you think? Yes, go ahead, Jaritza. Jaretzi.
Yes, thank you. No, I don't think artificial intelligence can become wise. I believe that artificial intelligence can provide the knowledge and perhaps even methodological steps and different forms of knowledge, but not wisdom, because wisdom is get to do it and sense it from a more humanistic perspective.
Mhm.
It's quite different that an artificial intelligence truly understands emotions, physical pain when it cannot experience it itself.
Okay.
And also responding to to what you said, I think, and it's really important to go with this kind of rationalism that Kant proposes, where, not necessarily, but in our day and age, because with things like, for example, artificial intelligence, different values have become loose and it's difficult for everyone to agree with one. For example, philosophical thinking. And that's also what makes us great humans and individuals and so amazing, but also what can provide this kind of counterback effect where it can also create a lot of chaos.
Yes. Could you elaborate a little bit more about that chaos, Jaretzi?
Yes. Well, I believe it creates chaos because for one's values, it represents, for example, uh, not, for example, being vegetarian.
Mm-hmm.
It poses that animals should not be eaten because it's a form of life and different stuff, which is respectable. But they could also take it to a point where they could harm themselves, and it's where the line is really thin with our values and how we see different perspectives. For example, someone who has a different diet would not respect it. Perhaps it could be aggressive towards it. And this is just a simple scenario. A more realistic one could be across countries, and I believe the most important way in it, sorry, in which it's being portrayed today in our world is throughout social and political changes, because different countries have different perspectives, and the chaos is created when it's not only about ideals anymore, but about one's safety and basic human rights, which I believe are they are universal laws, but they need to be respected, because unlike values that can change and should be respected but sometimes are not, human rights are necessary to one's life. And I think in that sense it creates the chaos. Yes.
Thank you, Yaretsi. Do you agree? Do you all agree? Yes, Amir, go ahead. And then Charan.
So yeah, with the question of artificial intelligence, I think that like nowadays no, but in the future when they can experience different stuff, they can analyze what happens and even like use this knowledge without ethics or morals, as we were talking about, like maybe lying to people. For example, maybe a person who doesn't know about fire, maybe like nothing, and who has like this AI has already experienced it and knows that it causes burns, could tell a person that nothing happens knowing that it does. So I think that nowadays not, because they do not have this experience that maybe humans do.
Okay, thank you. Charan? Yeah, we can hear you,
Uh,
Charan.
yeah, I want to elaborate what Amir said. He says that artificial intelligence can be wise in the near future, for if we develop new scientific technologies, like making the artificial intelligence be aware of itself in order to understand how humans see the world. By which doing so, the artificial intelligence can be wise and give us helpful information that can therefore develop a society.
Okay, but didn't we agree that um, wisdom is based on experience, and artificial intelligence, is it really having experiences? What do you think, Jacob?
Well, based off of that, I would say there's a difference between acting wisely and being wise, because
Okay.
right now AI can kind of like mimic wisdom by making like moral judgments through like what is statistically the best outcome, but it doesn't understand why that decision is kind of wise, because it doesn't have a conscience and it doesn't like really have like human like things to it. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like AI can like recommend like what the statistically best outcome could be, but a wise human would also consider like the long-term impacts and different ethical trade-offs with that, in which AI can't experience.
Yeah. Um, uh, as the quote says, wisdom is an organized life. Artificial intelligence is really having a life. And I connect that to humans, like life to humans. It's one of our characteristics, or something that defines us and makes us different from other animals. Our virtues is the ethical parts, precisely. So mm, that's messy. That's a messy part. That's why it's very hard to know what to do in when there's an ethical dilemma, right? We don't know for sure what to do, because we don't have we could have these morals that are, because I grew up in a family, I grew up in a certain context, so I have a certain point of view from my own growing up. But Kant says there is another set of values that are universal. And if you are able to pause before you act, I think in a universal way, if your action is going to be positive, then you could be more close to being wise, because you are going to choose better. So I think the experiences what they do is expose us to different cases, to different situations where we have to choose um, based on how we grew up, based on our ideas, and based on our previous experiences. And from those decisions, we can strengthen our decision making process. I think Kant is addressing us or directing us to this is not an easy job. Being human is very complex. Being human means that we are unique, but we are also a universe of people. So I'm not alone in this universe. I'm with others, and my actions impact others. And sometimes I I feel that science forgets that science has this idea or this approach that the most important thing is to progress, and not always it's beneficial to others, right? So I think that's a component that we are missing, that we are humans and it's very hard for us to make decisions. So we that's why we teach, well, I teach ethics, but that's why you learn ethics in the schools, right? That's why it is important to reflect upon different case scenarios. What would you do if, or what would you do in this case? So we can start thinking in a more ethical way. And I think from the different ethical approaches that you are going to study or you are studying, I think ethics, Kantian ethics, it's a very strong pillar that you could. It's universal. It's not locked in time and place. It could be used in any culture, in any time, in any place, in any situation. That's why I believe Kantian ethics is a really positive proposal to guide any aspect of our decisions, right? Not only scientific and how we use and how we buy things, but also how we relate to others, how we defend human rights, how we use artificial intelligence. That pillar can guide our decision makings when it becomes to ethics. So we are almost 5 minutes to closing. So I would like to hear what is your conclusion of this discussion. I think we can do a round of it. And if you have other questions that this discussion arouse, they are very welcome. So let's start with Opal.
I think in conclusion, I've learned about the relationship between the two and how you talked about ethical thinking. And I think to create wisdom to blend with science, it's important to be around critical thinking environments and making sure our perspectives are diverse, questioning sources to eventually build up to wisdom, and making sure we're using science responsibly.
Thank you, Opal. Very good. Thank you. Jacob?
I'd like to conclude that science kind of like tells us what we can do, but wisdom helps us decide what we should do. This kind of ensures that progress leads in a meaningful, ethical, and sustainable change, because science must be guided by wisdom, not just after discoveries and advances are made, but at like the beginning of the process of these scientific advancements.
I agree, Jacob. Thank you very much. Let me try to say your name, Ryuji. I almost called you Eduardo, but it's Ryuji.
Yeah, that's correct. So I would conclude from this discussion that both wisdom and science are two concepts that are together. They complement both. And I think that we live in a society of constant change, and we need both science to have new developments, but also wisdom to have developments with the ethical values and a moral direction. In modern education, we should be focused on teaching both in order to have the correct application of both both concepts to achieve a both organized life and knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Eduardo. Then we have Charan.
Yeah, in conclusion, I learned that while knowledge can give us information and wisdom, we can use wisdom to employ that information. It gives us a detailed structure of how to use that information according to whether it be good or whether it be bad, and it gives us like a detail. It gives us a path to follow with the wisdom.
Thank you. Very interesting. A path to follow. That's very good, Charan. Yaretsi.
Yes. Well, afterwards the discussion, I believe that Kant has so much relevancy towards not just history but to today and to our society, and it can lead us to so many advances throughout different discussions, ethical values, and pondering whether we what we do is correct and what consequences it has. And I would like to finish by saying a phrase that really impacted me and that it reminds me of what I believe Kant is trying to refer to us, which is from Dead Poet Society.
Mm-hmm.
Medicine, law, business, engineering, these are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life, but poetry, philosophy, and love are what makes us live.
Thank you, Yaretsi. Very nice. Thank you. Amir?
Yeah, so I would like to conclude with also with a phrase of historian Sorkakari that said, "Knowledge should never be confused with wisdom. Wisdom helps us earn a living. Wisdom helps us live." And I think that this shows that knowledge even is a useful tool, but without wisdom, it doesn't necessarily lead to this balanced or meaningful life. And yeah, like knowledge alone doesn't guarantee wisdom. True wisdom arises when this knowledge is used ethically and with responsibility.
Thank you, Amir. Thank you. I love your quotes. I also have one for my closure, and it is good, even if nobody is doing it, and bad is bad, even if everyone is doing it. So we have to think a lot about how we make choices, what we see all around us. I really enjoyed this session with you all. You are very bright students. Thank you very much. So I'm gonna invite you for the next year. Maybe you can join us. And I want to thank all the schools that participated with us. Instituto Internacional Octavio Paz, New Cambridge School in Cali, Gimnasio del Norte in Bogotá, International School, the West of Australia, Navajo Prep School, Instituto de Amichis, Colegio Williams de Cuernavaca, Universidad Internacional Jefferson, Centro de Enseñanza Técnica Superior Tijuana, Colegio La Paz de Chiapas, Universidad de Celaya, Instituto Kipling Esmeralda bueno, el Colegio Internacional Terranova les agradece muchísimo. Thank you very much for everyone joining us in this session. I really enjoyed it. I congratulate you because you have bright ideas, and I know the world will be better with students like you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.